It's
Hol-
been a minute.
You are live now. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry about that. Well, it's been a minute. How have you
I
been?
know. Been busy. Down to the last what, like 10 or 11 days here. So last little
11 days.
stretch, 11 days, August 6th. Sorry. Um, yeah, final stretch. Just been knocking doors, calling people, putting out statements for things, putting out yard signs. Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it all comes to fruition here. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And I think the exciting and the reflection part is starting to hit me now, where just the amount of people like yourself even that I've gotten to meet throughout this whole campaign process. I think that's the most beautiful part, and thing that kind of goes unsaid with a lot of this is it gives you, when you run for office, it gives you a chance to connect with people in your community that you would have no business normally connecting with. There's no reason for you to connect with so many different groups and interests, that you just don't have the capacity to. And so throughout this campaign process, I think that's been the most fun part, is having an excuse to show up, drop in on events, for people to be like, "Who the heck are you?" and getting to meet all these people. Like tomorrow, I'm going to this um, Mr. Wilkins. I'm going to his 70th birthday party. He's having a pig roast in his backyard in Kentwood. It's he said like 200 some people are going to be there, and yeah, he just wanted to support me. He likes what I'm about. We met at that Juneteenth event, I think I said before. And yeah, it's just been awesome getting to meet people like that.
I love that for you. Yeah, I agree. This whole movement has definitely put some beautiful people into my life as well that I'm very grateful for. And I know you and I have been kind of back and forth texting, but I just think it's like a social experiment that you've been doing
Yeah.
these last months. What a beautiful way to learn what I'm going to say your future constituents want, need.
Yeah.
Um, so it's great that you've been able to
Yeah.
do that. A lot of energy has been put on you, or you're using a lot of energy. How are you holding up?
I'm good. Yeah. I mean, it's a grind for sure, but um, I, I think it goes back to why I started doing this in the first place, and the gradual progression with politics that everyone kind of goes through. Is first you get upset over something, you maybe say something about it to a friend, then you post about it on social media, and then from there you start to maybe call your representatives, you call your senators, city people, whatever it may be. But you start to get engaged there. You realize that they're not engaging with you. You're not getting any type of responses. They're not representing you in the way that you want to be represented. And so then you start to organize and you start to get more motivated and you want to run for office. And that's the whole premise behind my story, I would say, and the background of it all. And that's where I get most of my fulfillment from in doing all of this is I mean, it goes back to my opponent democratically, and or my Democratic opponent and my Republican opponents, is I don't see them putting out the same work that I'm putting in. I've had Republican and independent people saying that they're voting for me as well, because they're like, you're a crazy person that shows up to every stupid event and like every single thing, and is willing to have conversations and sometimes be the only one there, but at least like I'm willing to do that. And they're like, that's the type of person that I want to represent me, is someone willing to have those conversations. And for me, emotionally, spiritually, all that stuff, I get my fulfillment from there, and knowing that people are happy with having someone that's at least listening and making them feel heard. So yeah.
Absolutely, I agree with that. So it's been a few weeks. I know both of us were a little under the weather, vacation, all of that. And in that few weeks, there's been a lot
A
that has
lot.
happened.
A lot
There's
of
been
crazy stuff.
so much, I don't even know where to start, but there was a post that I just want to give you a little bit more space to speak on in regards to Biden and the DNC when he was still
Yeah.
the nominee for the
Yeah.
Democratic nominee.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak more about your thoughts
Yeah.
on that? I know that you posted a video. I know some people it didn't sit well with some people, but I just want to give you
Sure.
some space to speak more on that.
For sure. And I'll kind of lump in just the VP and by President Biden, just the whole situation with what's going on right now for our party. So, I honestly was not giving too much thought into the presidential candidates, because I am focused on my campaign here. As a Democrat, I do want to support them. In doing so, I how I envision that is I go out, I talk to people in my district, I try to win my election and get representation. And from there, I look at it with higher levels like a senator or presidential candidate, or a president that's trying to run for reelection. They come to the district that I represent and on behalf of the people, and I express to that person, hey, this is what the people in my district are telling me that they're upset with, or they're happy with, or they need, all that type of stuff. So things really kicked off with Hillary Scholten's comments saying that President Biden should step down. I think she went as far as saying that she doesn't support him as well. And I immediately came out because she went on like a world tour with it all. And I said, hey, he is the nominee. Whether you like it or not, he is a Democratic nominee. And at that point, it is up to him to make the decision to step down. And from my standpoint, I said, look, I've educated people on what the uncommitted vote was back in the February primary. And a lot of people came at me and said, hey, any vote that's not for Biden in this primary is a vote for Donald Trump. And I pointed that out as far as all the misinformation. And I go, that's stuff that, misinformation I will never support wherever it comes from. And I'll call it out. And so I said to people, look, you have 3 candidates and 4 options. I go, you can vote for Dean Phillips, Marianne Williamson, President Biden, or you can vote uncommitted. And uncommitted to me, and I think to a lot of people, it was a protest to what's going on in the Middle East. And it could also be used as a protest of, I do not like President Biden running for reelection. I do not like the 2 other candidates, Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips. I would like somebody else. And we saw the numbers come out in droves in the 100,000, 101,000, I think it was, uncommitted votes. But you also saw 625,000 people voted for President Biden. So what I said was, look, he is the nominee. Until he makes that decision to step down, that's his decision. And you can pressure him however you want, but that's his decision. And because I said that because I think it invalidates the 625,000 people when you're saying, ignoring the process that we had. And to me, it's a slippery slope that you're going down with all of that stuff, because who's to say, if I'm elected to this office, and who's to say that I won't get pressure on a certain voter stance that I come out with, and people might pressure me to step down. Well, let's say I do win this election. I was voted on by the people. I won this position. So I think that's something that I was trying to point out with, it's a slippery slope that you go down when you start to pressure people and to ignore the 625,000 that did vote for him. And I see the stats as far as all the people that, think he's too old, and, we're not comfortable with his age and all that stuff. But I question what has changed since the end of February to present day, or a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago or so, when it happened. What's changed? I personally haven't seen much of a difference exactly. And to me, it seemed like a pressure from the donors with that type of stuff. So and then I look at Vice President Harris right now. I respect everyone that's coming out and endorsing her and all of that. I know President Biden has, but for me, I'm saying that I would like an open convention, because I look at it from what we've seen before, and a lot of people commented on it as well, actually, with 2020, with the 24 primary, that we didn't actually have a primary. There weren't any legitimate candidates. And I go, how is that not encouraging the same type of behavior right now, when we're saying, let's rubber stamp Vice President Harris. She is the nominee right now. We don't even need to talk about this. And I go, we do need to talk about it, because some people said she's a part of the current administration, so why does she not? You can tell people, I said to someone, specifically with Hillary and another person, I go, you're telling me that I need to come out and support Vice President Harris. And, I do support her in the way of, if she wants to talk to me, she's welcome to, and I can help her look at some of the topics and everything that are going on. But I go, I need to know what her stances are and platform and everything, because I can rally the base and say, let's get behind Vice President Harris, and we can, talk about the first female president that we're looking at here in the historic side of that. But in our district, especially, it's a purple district. And that means a lot of those independent and moderate people, I need to get them on my side. And so you want me to come out and say that I fully endorse her. Well, we looked at her 2020 results and when she ran for president, and she wasn't in the top 5. So that's where I have considerations and fears over. But then also just flat out, what is your platform right now? Are you changing course with President Biden in the Middle East? Are you a Medicare for all supporter? Because when you ran in 2020, you said you were a Medicare for all supporter. So those are the types of things that, again, when I look at Hillary Scholten, I'm like, you're pandering and just saying whatever the hot topic issue is and agreeing with the public. And in a position of leadership, you need to have some type of direction. And Hillary hasn't done that because, again, when she asked President Biden to step down, she had no candidate in replacement there. Whitmer and Newsom, the two governors, both of them said they weren't running for office. And again, when you're in a position of leadership, you need to have some sense of direction. And Hillary hasn't been doing that stuff. She just says whatever is popular at that time.
I agree with that. In terms of what she does in terms of popularity and what she's jumping on bandwagons. I think it's really interesting. One thing that you mentioned earlier is all of a sudden Biden is stepping down. Nobody is talking about, Western media has not put anything out about the ICJ ruling last Friday, a week ago. And it's just so happens that 2 days later, Biden steps down. And according to the ICJ, Biden is a war criminal through their rulings. And so there's a lot going on there. And yes, I agree with what you're saying with the DNC, the processes, there's a due process, but they haven't followed it for quite some time. They're not listening to what the people want. So in, what was it, 2014 and then 2018, right? That was Bernie, both of those were
16 and 20.
16 and 20. Thank you.
Yep.
So that's what we wanted, and we didn't get it. And Biden was he was 5th place this last running, and Kamala got 0 delegates. She got 0. So they're not listening to what the people want. And for me, what that equates to is they're trying to uphold white supremacy and capitalism. They don't want change. They just want to keep us in a box. And quite honestly, I know that you're running on the Democratic ticket, but at this point in time, what I'm seeing is the Democrats and the Republicans are the same. There's no difference there, especially with presidency. And so it's disheartening. Kamala's statement yesterday in regards to Hamas being a terrorist organization and burning of our flag as a form of free speech. We can do that. She's saying she's not going to tolerate that. Meeting with Netanyahu getting 7 standing ovations. I mean, we're going to look in history and see this and cringe, right? I mean, those images of Rashida are breaking my heart. I'm just heartbroken. And it's very reminiscent of Nazi Germany with that guy that sat down and didn't hail to Hitler, right? It's the same exact scenario. And the history books are going to see these images of Kamala standing with a big old smile with Netanyahu, a war criminal who is wanted to get tried. His own people do not want him. He gets more love in America than he gets in Israel. And that says a lot. And I'm really like very, very, I'm having a hard time. Especially with white liberals in particular.
Well, let me kind of jump in with some points there. So I saw her statement as well with Vice President Harris. It's the frustrating part of protests. Like, I've gone to protests before, especially for Palestinian protests. I will say I personally do not like what I saw with burning of the flag and graffiti and stuff like that. That's stuff that I don't support, because you're trying to get, when you protest, you're trying to bring awareness and get people to join your side. and stuff like that only gets people to point a finger and to get upset with you, and to discredit, I guess, your cause. And especially with burning the flag, I don't support that type of stuff, because I do see the benefits of I look at my parents and what this country has brought to my parents, and my mom coming over from Europe and escaping Soviet Union occupation, and my dad as well. I do understand some of the wars, and like my dad, for example, with Palestinian descent, they were impacted because America's decision to support and continue supporting Israel is one of the reasons why they were displaced in the first place. But then to come over here as well to also get that opportunity. I don't support flag burning or anything like that. And I know you. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you or anything, but so I was just. I don't want to see that in protest. I want people to protest, and I'm trying to give Vice President Harris to give her time to come out with statements and everything. But yeah, that is for I'm not motivated to come out and continue saying, yeah, she's going to speak up for what's going on in the Middle East. I'm not sitting here rallying my supporters and saying that stuff. I'm like, yeah, I see what you see as well, and I don't see someone looking to change course. I see someone that's looking to just kind of peddle the same narrative, where they use these general power words of, look, they need to do something different, but also here's $20 billion more in weaponry. You know, they need to look out for civilian life, but then Israel will blow up refugee camps and UNRWA sites, and nothing occurs. And so it's like, when is enough with all that? And I'm trying to give her patience and give her grace, but I'm not seeing that change in tone and in course here. It sounds like the same speechwriter from President Biden as well with those topics.
Word for
Um,
word for
it,
word.
yeah, and with what you're saying as well with the party stuff, I agree with the uniparty when it gets up to the leadership positions, not leadership, but the very high levels of it all. I don't know if I think we're at the point now where it's not just one race. I think it's more, it is, I do believe there is some, I think it's more of like a ruling class is at the top, because now I mean, I do see diversity with like the billionaires, not as much as like the mass population, I would say, but I do see a little bit more diversity now with billionaires, as opposed to when you looked 40, 50 years ago. Just slightly a little bit more diversity, not a lot. But I just see them peddling the same status quo and just relax. There's no need for change. There's no need for change. And it's what is the stat, like 3.5% or 3% of the population, if we can get them to be upset or to jump on a cause, that's enough to change the momentum on things. And I look at certain issues that I have posted on my website. When I look at like pharmaceutical, like big pharma, why 20% of them, 20% of the top 30 companies in revenue are health insurance and pharmaceutical drug makers. And I go, us and America and New Zealand are the two countries in the world that allow for direct to consumer advertisements with pharmacies or drug manufacturers. And why are we not changing stuff like that? Like that to me is the frustrating part. And Sean Fain, the UAW president, had a great speech. He goes, the ruling class over us has done such a great job of making it a Republican versus Democrat argument with things. He goes, it's not Democrat versus Republican. He goes, it's the ruling class versus us working class people. And I point to that exactly in like cities like Muskegon Heights versus Fruitport, where there are parts of Fruitport that have some wealthier areas, but for the most part, there are lower income areas in both. And don't have access to healthcare, don't have the best educational, and it's, you would think that those two groups would be on the same side of things, but they couldn't be further opposite. And I look at how um, prescription drugs have impacted both of those communities as well. And it's like those two communities could not be farther on the political spectrum from each other. And it's been a great job by the ruling class to do that, is what I'd have to point out to them, because they've done such a great job in distracting us to not point out all these different issues. And I look at what's going on as well in the Middle East as a great example of it all, where we can see just the misinformation that these mainstream media outlets are pushing. I mean, you allowed Netanyahu tried for corruption charges by his own court system. Yes, he has the arrest warrants as well with the ICJ. But more importantly, he's addressed Congress 4 times, where Winston Churchill, the leader of England during World War II, he addressed Congress twice. And he addressed Congress in, I think it was 52 or 53. And so Netanyahu has addressed Congress more than Winston Churchill, which is a wild thing to say. And the stories that he was saying those protesters outside were paid by Iran. And we can look at other speeches of his prior about saying how Iraq is looking to get weapons of mass destruction and all this, the escalation and pushing for us to invade. And it's like, if you go on social media, you can see clips of Dave Matthews, the musician. He's out there protesting. Yeah. And it's, we can just see
J-Lo.
the lies.
Even J-Lo, man, 4.5
Oh, really?
Yeah.
J-Lo's out there? Oh, wow.
No, she's not protesting, but she gave 4.5 million over to the Palestinians.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh. It was pretty amazing.
But yeah, I just think about this stuff so much. I see where people come from when they say like white supremacist stuff. I see where you're coming from. I just try to stay to the priorities and things that I have listed on my website and other topics that I hear about with people. Because I can look at like what's going on in the Middle East as far as these narratives that are being pushed, and it's like we're not focusing on the right things here. These are human beings that are being moved constantly from every refugee camp, are not allowed food, not allowed aid, not allowed proper medical treatment. And it's the same thing that we're seeing in in America here, where people can't afford health care. They're not getting the right food. They're always getting processed and GMO foods. And it's the same stuff that's going on here. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, and the Democratic Party. No, that's okay. I'm a little ranty today myself. I just, the Democratic Party, when we're talking about Cop City, that's all Democratic led, especially in, Atlanta, Georgia. You think about New York and the policing that's going on, the increase of policing, all Democratic Party. California just recently, because of the Supreme Court ruling with homelessness, they're trying to criminalize that. It's all Democratic led. It's like, when are people gonna fucking wake up? That's what I want to know. When are people? We have other options. So I will be voting third party all the way. There's no doubt. I was waiting for Kamala. I didn't really have too much hope. I had like 1%. I was seeing what she was going to do. She didn't show up to Netanyahu's speech in Congress. That was a ploy. That was a tactic. And then she met with him yesterday and then came out with those statements of support. And calling Hamas a terrorist, I don't agree with that. The oppressed can never be the terrorist. So, and with the ICJ rulings, it says, basically with that, we are the terrorists. The US and Israel are the terrorists at this point in time. And she is upholding this. So it just, it's like the math isn't mathing. Make it make sense. What? And then there's this meme that I saw today that really got me. It's like white women, let's answer the call, vote for Kamala. And it just really irks me because white women, especially liberal white women, since back in the day, especially with civil rights, they have always been the ones that have slowed the movement, stopped the movement. For Black and Brown Indigenous women. They always have. And it was just another reminder that it's still happening. It's still happening. This is not the answer. People think there's only 2 parties. And we're saying, as brown Arab women, join us on a revolution, right? Let's do something different here. But no, they're scared. And I think the reasons, I've been thinking a lot about this whole Project 2025, and I'm like, oh, it's interesting that all of a sudden white liberals are really scared about this is the same stuff that's been happening to black and brown people since the Europeans came over here to America. And so now people care, right? Like, so now
Mhm.
people are really up in arms and caring about this. And it's really, it's just, it's eye-opening, it's upsetting, I feel right now in this moment hopeless. I don't
Yeah.
think that there's going to be a change that we need during this election season. And no, voting third party, I don't want Trump, absolutely not, but I don't want Kamala. And it looks like that's what the DNC is going to do is put Kamala in.
You're the perfect example of people that I'm trying to warn my party about, and it's the same thing. I it's this constant suppression and saying, "No, just listen to me. You need to vote for Vice President Harris." Instead of, "No, you're the voter. I need to try and get you to vote for me. So what are the issues that you want? What are the issues that are impacting you?" And I constantly warn people in my party like this, where they have this mindset of, no, be quiet, vote for us. Like you're radical for not voting for us. And it's a mindset shift because the biggest voting group are the people that don't vote. And I go, every election cycle, we have the chance to get your vote and to earn your vote on issues that we put forward and attract you to join me and to vote for me. And I try to remind people of that type of stuff. And again, it goes back to with Vice President Harris. We need to hear platforms. We need to hear issues that you're passionate about everything. And one person responded with, "Well, tell them that she was a part of this past administration with the Biden Harris administration. That was her." And I go, "Okay, President Biden had one of the lowest approval ratings. So you want me to say that she was a part of that?" I go, "If anything, you want me to disassociate that." And I go, "The other thing is we had the uncommitted vote in Michigan, and you can watch every news network show where they always point to, the election's going to come down to the battleground states. Michigan's always one of the top ones. Pennsylvania, I feel like, is right behind us, and Wisconsin, I don't know, it kind of goes a little bit Republican, but um, I go, you're ignoring the 100,000 people that can win or swing this election for you."
Mhm.
And I'm trying to warn people because on the Senate side, in Michigan, you have Justin Amash, and he is running his campaign as a constitutionalist, as a moderate Republican person. And I go, if he makes it past his primary, he's probably gonna win that because he is addressing the issue with Arab people who tend to be more conservative, I will say.
That's true.
And he goes, with what's going on in the Middle East as well, he goes, nobody's been impacted more by these forever wars than Middle Eastern people and Balkan people as well. And he goes, Grand Rapids has a big Balkan area, or Balkan community. And he goes, Dearborn, obviously, with the Middle East and scattered throughout the states as well. Not to mention, like, Pennsylvania has a Middle Eastern population as well. But you can either tell those people to be quiet and to shut up and get on your team, which they probably won't listen to you, or you can actually listen to them and address their issues to me, do the right thing, end the wars, and you'll get their votes and win that election. And I just point out the hypocrisy that I see a lot of times with people when you were talking about the white liberal person. And I go, I had a discussion with a county commissioner from East Grand Rapids, and a businesswoman who owns a couple businesses around Grand Rapids. I'm not going to dox them or anything, but they came out and endorsed my opponent and said, I don't see what's going on and what's wrong with everything. And I go, of course you're not going to see it. You're in a well-funded community. Your school districts are always funded by your public or property taxes. And I go, and the roadways are fine here. There's no problems. But I go on her website, look at the projects she was supposed to request funding for. And now come with me, and I'll bring you to the Muskegon Heights area, and I can show you the Broadway project that she underfunded. And I had someone say, well, I don't trust the Muskegon Heights leadership as well. And I go, well, if you don't trust them, if you think they're corrupt, fine. But at least I have jurisdiction to go after those people here, as opposed to if I give those billions of dollars abroad, I don't have any jurisdiction to go after those types of people. And I mean, we've seen it in Ukraine. I think the 60 Minutes piece came
Mhm.
out and said, we don't know where a third of the military weaponry, we can't account for a third of what we've given to Ukraine. And I go, that's hundreds of billions of dollars that you can account for. What are we doing here? Like, that's where you
And
start
we
to get
spent
people
down
that,
for 10 years to support that war for 10 years.
yep,
It's and it's
and
all
that's where,
about resources, right? That's all. I mean, the Ukraine has got beautiful
yeah.
resources. So does Middle East.
And that's where you start to get people that see this type of stuff, see it not being called out. And that's why I'll probably be the most boring politician if I'm elected here, because I have a tough time doing the rah-rah stuff, because when you aren't being honest and transparent with people and you're just trying to push these campaign slogans and everything, you're you lose people to that stuff, because when they see all the weaponry that can't be accounted for and then we're creating it here, they look at that as flat out money laundering that's going on as we print more of it, because there it's all just given to these foreign countries. And like, I'm meeting with a Republican guy tonight that he wanted to help promote me as well, and he goes, I'm glad you acknowledge this type of stuff, because he goes, I just want someone to acknowledge it, because he looks at people like Thomas Massey from Kentucky that's wanting to end the Fed, um, because of their ability to just continue printing money and put us further in debt. And
Mhm.
again, it goes, all of this comes back to other situations and other scenarios where I look at younger people like myself or even younger that are trying to buy a house and can't afford it because the prices are so dang high. Like, I was
Interest rate.
talking to, yeah,
That's
I
yeah.
mean, I was talking to my neighbor the other day who's, we were talking about the $15 minimum wage rate. And he goes, do you support that stuff? And I go, honestly, I'm gonna say, does it matter? Because for small business owners, they're already paying $15 an hour, if not more, to retain staff. And I go, for me, for example, when I ran my small business, I was paying 14 and 15-year-olds $15 an hour just to carry chairs, and they would still give me attitude and everything. And I go, it's it's a safety net for a lot of people, because I look at like my cousin, for example, is he's quite autistic and he doesn't have the ability to I would say operate on his own. And I go, so what are you supposed to do with the person like that, where my uncle's probably going to die before my cousin does? What is he supposed to do then? Is, how would you feel if that was your kid? And I said, tough crap, man. Go get a better job if you really want to be paid more. And I go, it's the lack of humanity with that stuff. But the other point, sorry, I'm rambling a bit here, but the other point that I wanted to get at with him was, we started talking about home prices as well. And I go, you bought your house probably at, because he bought it before we had bought ours. And I go, you had probably been there for 40 years. I go, your house is probably cheaper than the mine that I bought in 2021. And if you haven't paid off your mortgage as well right now, it's, you probably refinance for the 3%. And I go, so your house is bigger than mine. You got it for cheaper than mine and a lower interest rate, if not equivalent to mine. So your monthly payments are way down here, where all of us younger people that are trying to get a house, we're looking now at like 200,000 plus in the Grand Rapids area. On average throughout the US, it's like $400,000 for a home. But in the US or Grand Rapids area, it's at least 200,000 for a decent home. And that monthly payment with the mortgage or the interest rate at about 7% is about close to $2,000. Not to mention with health insurance, once you get off of that from your parents, you'll get student loan costs as well, and a car payment, possibly car insurance as well. I go, your monthly payments of just flat out expenses is about $3,000, if not closer to $4,000. And I go, do you see how possibly some of these younger people might be a bit stressed financially? And when I put it like that, he started to understand it a bit more and see where I was coming. And I think that's kind of the gap sometimes with generations, is trying to talk about some of that stuff. So, yeah.
I have to say too, because when I was a program director in Northern Kent County, that $15 minimum wage, that was like what, 10 years ago? And there's been such a huge rise in the cost of living since then. It's more like $25 for one person to be able to live
Yeah,
somewhat, even that's 52K a year. It's nothing,
yeah,
really. So that at this point in time, it's been in legislation through the state, feds, whatever, and it's just sitting there, lame duck. It's not going anywhere. And in the meantime, cost of living is going up. $15 is nothing. It's
yeah,
nothing. It needs to
yep,
be $25 because of everything that's been going on, which equates to capitalism. And yeah, I mean, even in the last 3 years, I think we've discussed that the rate for even groceries, it's like gone up 30%, I think,
mm,
which is a lot. It's a lot.
yeah,
So I'm looking at the time. We're at
yeah,
35
yeah. Sorry.
minutes.
Yeah,
Um, should we end this and maybe start another one for people if they wanna you wanna do that?
we can keep it going. I think. I don't
Okay, keep
know.
it going?
Keep it going.
Okay.
Let's go for another like 20 minutes or
All
so,
right,
and
they
then
can pause
yeah,
it.
yeah, 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 yeah,
All
yeah.
right, all right, all right, that sounds
But
good.
But I agree with the price of living and cost of living of everything. There's a state bill in Michigan. I think it was in '88. I don't know if we talked about it last time,
No, we
but
did.
the ability for rent control by city,
Mm,
um, that's something that's been looked at as well.
mhm.
I think that's where a lot of people get frustrated sometimes when we're always told vote for Democrats, we'll get things done, and then it's you get the trifecta in our state, and it's like, why didn't it go through?
Why
And
isn't it
and
happening? Why didn't the ERA? There was one lady today that said, "I'm voting for Kamala for
mm,
women's reproductive rights." I'm like, "Well, why didn't she do anything since all 4 years that she's been vice president? She could have done something. Why didn't she do
I,
anything?"
And that's the frustration with it all is like you pointed out to people. I was talking to a friend of mine who owns a store in he owns a record store in Grand Haven, and we were talking about tax stuff at first, and he goes, "Yeah, I don't feel like corporations are getting their fair share." And I told him about like there's a video of Warren Buffett from his profit sharing this past year where he goes, we'll pay about $5 billion in taxes. And he goes, if the next 100 people would pay their proper or our what we're paying the equivalent of percentage wise in taxes, he goes, nobody would have to pay a single dollar in taxes because everything would be financed. And I've pointed that out before with just the kind of like the loopholes that are constantly set in place. And he was like, well, why don't some of these wealthy people step up and run for office and get into office? And I go, it's the same thing that I've been attacked on with certain things where, we point out the women's reproductive rights. And I go, yeah, it's apparently been a bit of a fraud with some of these things where we could have passed this ERA and it hasn't been passed. It's been sitting on the desk of the president from Trump and Biden. And just hasn't been passed. And I go, and I said in my article, I wrote down the history of it all and everything. I put links and everything. And on the last line, I go, I promise not to weaponize the topic for votes. I promise to, I think I might have said to get things done or something. And somebody was like, yeah, that's a red flag of this guy. I don't think he's actually a women's rights supporter. And it's like, this is the part of we need to have open and proper discussions. And especially for positions like mine, like a representative, you are not going to know every single thing that is going on, especially when you're trying to run for office, because there's just too many moving pieces. And as a person, I'm in a fortunate spot that I don't have a wife and kids and everything like that right now. But there are people that are, in those positions, and it's hard to keep up on every single thing. But we need to have these open discussions, and so we can always prevent history from repeating itself. Is how I look at it.
Yeah, I think history just continues to repeat itself,
Mhm.
and people just blindly accept this two-party trap. I think it's a trap. But
Yep.
yeah, I can we talk a little bit more about the ICJ ruling? We just kind of brushed on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? I mean, that was the biggest ruling they've ever had in the history of ICJ, and Western media is not. There has not been one outlet that has said anything about it.
Yep.
I know that it's speculation. My mind wanders 2 days later, Biden stepping down.
Yep.
And, on the topic of that, it really pisses me off that people were upset with Biden. It wasn't the genocide that was going on. It was a bad debate that everyone all of a sudden is up in arms and wants him to step down. It's not the genocide that he's been supporting since
Hmm.
October, but I digress. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the ICJ rulings?
Yeah. And with the President Biden stuff, I think that's again the the job of the media of the look over here, and distraction stuff. That whole him stepping down, it was all started with the uncommitted movement. I don't care what people say. You have to acknowledge the stats behind that because that's uncommitted's never got. I mean, it's always been a thing, but it's never gotten that many votes, and nobody wants to acknowledge that. Or I'm surprised that's not being talked about more in the media here, especially in
Mhm,
Michigan.
mhm,
I know I've seen um, their social media pages, and I think the New York Times or a media outlet somewhat did a story on them. Oh, they still wouldn't vote for Biden. Um, but yeah, with the ICJ rulings, I mean, I know America does not recognize that court system. I think there's a technicality there. Um, but for me, I mean, I just look at it on every other issue with the other issues and how it relates to everything of we've used over half of our vetoes at the United Nations on this dang country. How is our reputation globally? Do countries trust and value our opinions, or are we just bullying them because we have the biggest and baddest military? And I look at the amount of money that we've given to Israel as well, almost double that of Egypt, which is the second place or second largest recipient of foreign aid since Israel's creation. It's about 303 billion versus 162 billion. Um, and Egypt at least has the technically the canal is their control, so we're benefiting from that relationship. And everyone points to, well, they're the only democracy and our only ally over there. And I go, okay, NATO, which that's another topic. NATO opened up a headquarters in Jordan. I go, they have bases as well. The U.S. has bases as well in Jordan. And I go, so now that invalidates your argument as well as they're our only ally, because NATO for the first time has opened up a headquarters in Jordan and in the Middle East, and it's looking at more NATO expansion, which I personally do not support. But so I look at like the ICJ ruling from all of those standpoints and all those different issues there. I mean, yes, I've been saying that he should be locked up, Netanyahu, for a while, and we should not be sanctioning the courts and trying to go after that court system like Elisa Slotkin supports. I can't even believe that. That just shows you with our governmental system where it's like when we want to get something done on such a random, nobody's asking for those sanctions to go forward. They get it done immediately. But when we want health insurance, it takes forever. And well, it's complicated. You don't understand. And it's like, no, I do understand that we could save 68,000 lives if we switch to a Medicare for all system. Understand that we can save 17% on administrative costs if we switch over to a Medicare for all system. And we just don't talk about that type of stuff. And it frustrates me with things.
I agree. I agree. Well, the ICJ rulings, back to that. What are your
All right, go
thoughts?
on.
What are your
I,
thoughts?
I, I don't. I mean, I support him. I don't know. Is there something you're looking for with it all, or?
No, I just feel
Uh,
like that is everything. It just says
yeah,
everything that we've been saying this whole entire time for, they're saying give land back, take down
reparations. Yep, the
the
wall.
the wall, the settlements, everything that we've been saying, right? That we've been
Yep.
fighting for. And now it exposes Israel. And here we are a week later, yesterday, Kamala giving a statement in support of
Mhm.
Israel and making Hamas look like the terrorists.
Yeah.
So it's like, and the media has not, nobody knows. I've been talking about it. And quite honestly, I had 10 clients yesterday. I'm a
Mhm.
therapist, and I saw 10 clients yesterday. All of
Mhm.
them except for two came in and they are sick to their stomach. They do not know what to do. They are like, this is affecting us, right? This is affecting our mental health, our mental well-being, all of everything. It's not okay. What we went through with Trump was extremely traumatic. We're being triggered. And so people are reacting through fear. And that's why Kamala's the answer. And she's not the answer. And so they again are in this two-party trap. Well, if I were to vote for third party, it's a vote for Trump. No, it's not.
Right.
And like you said, the uncommitted movement, what was it? 710K across the nation. She's
Yeah.
not going to
So,
win.
yeah.
She's not winning. Trump is going to win because there are going to be many people, 710 at least, and there's probably more now that have woken up and see what's happening, that are not going to be voting for Kamala and will be voting third party. So again, I was seeing the white liberal or the white women, let's answer the
Yeah.
call. Well, the call is let's have a revolution, right? So
Yep.
I just feel like it's another pawn that they're playing. They're not telling anybody about it. And if we don't have all the pieces, like you said, they're not politically informed. I have a lot to learn myself. I am pretty politically informed, but I still have a
It's
lot
tough.
to learn.
It's tough.
It's a lot going on. I'm so grateful for you for telling me some of these things about the ERA. It was a huge thing. Thank you.
Mhm.
But also, I've put things together enough to know what the fuck is going on here.
Mhm.
And I it's like you can't unsee it anymore. I
Yeah.
can't with good conscience support candidates that do not support the greater good, humanity,
Yep.
Black and brown indigenous folks, and
Mhm.
they're upholding imperialism. When we're talking about everyone's so scared about Donald Trump and fascism, and I'm like, did you guys see 2 days ago when Netanyahu was addressing Congress and there was 7 standing ovations?
Yeah.
What is that? What do you call that? Like
Yeah.
it's already here. It's here.
You know,
Uh,
it's a big one. A lot of people talk about that Supreme Court ruling about
oh,
presidential immunity,
oh my
and
gosh. Mm,
I go, is that bad? Yes, 100%. I do not think presidents should have immunity, but I go, ask someone from Iraq in the early 2000s about presidential immunity, because what happened there during the early 2000s post 9/11 to the innocent civilians there. I mean, thankful for people like Julian Assange who exploited that type of stuff, and we have all the videos and everything that we've people like my age when we were young, when we saw it all happen and grown up and seen the videos. Now we can see all the war crimes that we committed, America. And yeah, I just put out some of the hypocrisy of that stuff. I don't think I talked about or finished the story, but I had a businesswoman, white businesswoman, who said she endorsed my opponent, and she had messaged me when we in Grand Rapids there was a homeless order that went through where
mhm,
all their stuff had to fit into a garbage bin container,
mhm,
and um, she had messaged me very concerned about it and all, and then she came out and she endorsed and sorry, let me finish this line here. I said that I go, look, I understand. I've asked the city where why they bring that ordinance. I go, first of all, it's not me. I'm on the planning commission. It's through the city commission. So I don't have no say in this. Also, I've already stepped down from the planning commission at the time. But I go, look, I understand where the order originated from. It was because there was an architecture firm on a corner where some homeless people set up a box. They put a box spring mattress right outside of the front door of this business, and they're like, it was a small business, and they're like, what are we supposed to do? Like, can we do something about this? I go, look, I agree with maybe having the stuff into that container. But I go, you need to also answer to that and say, okay, well, I also support more funding going to our homeless shelters to make sure those people are being taken care of and having the right access to resources there. But I loved how that was a concern for her, but she came out and supported my opponent. And I go, I thought you cared about homeless people, because right now what's going on in the Middle East is you have 2 million people that are homeless there. And I go, you look at Ukrainian people as well, where those people are now displaced as well because of our support for these continued wars that are going on here. And technically, Ukraine is being ran by, I would say, a dictator by status quo, because technically Zelensky's term ran up and he's still in office. It's not the time for elections, is what they said. And I go, it's a dark spot to be in with that stuff. So
It
yeah.
really is. You know, one thing that it was really cool to see in France, that the emergency elections that happen and everyone coming
Yeah.
together for that, that was really awesome. One
Yep.
thing that I don't like seeing in France is that they are not allowing for women to wear their hijab and they're at the Olympics, which is like,
Oh, they had that rule before that women can't wear hijabs. In Sweden, I think you have to be over the age of 14 to be able to wear a hijab as well. And yeah, it's funny. It's not funny in an actual funny way. It's just, I was talking to a friend about this, just the racism in some of these countries that I've seen and grown up, and I feel like I've always gotten like both sides of everything because I'm
you
white
really have.
passing.
Yeah,
Like,
same, same,
yeah,
same. And
like I'm
also,
white.
I'm thinking about you and your mother and your father and, like, thinking about what's going on right now for both of those countries. I'm just like, "Wow,
Mm,
Salim, we're
yeah.
gonna have to talk about that off the camera sometime."
Yeah. But I mean, I think about this stuff where I've always had, white passing, but then my name kind of exploits it there. And that's where racism was always such a weird thing to me, because I'm like, you were friends, people were nice to me because of my complexion and stuff and thinking I was white. And then the second they hear my name, they're like, oh, look at you a bit differently from there. And it's like, I don't know. I got the initial instincts. Oh, Tree, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We're
Okay.
frozen. I'm
Oh,
frozen. You look frozen.
yeah, yeah. Your screen's a little,
Yeah.
yeah.
I hope it's a good picture of me frozen. We'll see.
Yeah. Here, maybe try turning your camera on and off.
Okay, let me try.
Maybe that'll work.
Stop. Yeah, I don't know. It
Oh,
always does that on this platform for whatever reason. I'm
oh,
not too con Is it a funny
all
picture?
good. No, no, you just looked really intensely listening.
It's okay. It usually comes back, but this one's taken a while.
All good. Well, I just want to make sure you were hearing me,
I'm here.
um, but yeah, just with some of those countries, I mean, it's a foreign country, so it's uh, maybe not my place to speak on their country, but yeah, just I see it sometimes with these hijab bans, and they call it suppression of women and their rights and everything. And I go, if you actually knew some of the history, you would understand that some of those countries actually had their own forms of hijabs as well. We talk about like the babushkas usually with like, and I go, if you go into some of these old like 1700s, I think it is, not too well versed on this stuff, but they had head coverings, hair coverings, all that stuff. It's been modernized more. And I never understand people's fears with the differences on things, because when you embrace the differences, the easiest thing to talk about to me is always food. And I go,
Yes.
like, it's the most relatable for people. But I
Mhm.
go, you look at Thailand had, I think in the early 2000s, it was like a government thing that they pushed, but they sent their chefs around the world. It was like their diplomatic food tour, so people could be more accustomed to Thai food. And it's funny, like, because you'll see like different friends of mine that have never left the country, and they're like, I love Thai food. I love Thai food. And I'm like, yeah, that was a diplomatic program that this country of Thailand put in place to normalize their culture more to people. And I think about the same thing with some of these countries that have these fears to certain cultures and everything. And I go see it for yourself. Like, you just got to get out there and see it and experience it.
Yeah,
So
which is a
that's what
privilege
I
too,
do.
though, to be able to do that. But yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so interesting to me too with France. They are like they have a huge Muslim population in
Yeah.
France. It's I think that's their number one religion, like number one
I
religion, I
don't know about that.
believe. I
Okay.
believe I remember like learning that in social
Mhm.
work when I was in school, but I could be
Yeah.
wrong. But
Gotcha.
it's pretty major. It's
Yeah.
prominent.
Gotcha.
Um,
I think
so
there's just always too much fear sometimes with people.
oh,
And it's like at the end of the day, even with this political stuff, I look at, you know, I was actually talking to um, some friends last night where they were like, my friends are, most of my friends, I would say, are actually quite Republican. And um, I mean, we're always willing to have open conversations and everything. And we were talking last night. There's just so much fear sometimes with the policy stuff. And at the end of the day, we're all just looking to grow, to prosper, to make sure our family has the ability to obtain things that they want and to live a safe and nice life and everything. I think we need to get back to some of those issues and looking at stats with things and yeah,
mhm.
just focusing on the issues here.
Yeah. It feels pretty freaking alienating actually right now to be where I am. There's not too many other people in the community. And that was one of the things when I put together the Musicians for Palestine, that was my main concern. I like the biggest thing was that I wanted to bring
Mhm.
people together to
Yeah,
talk about these things freely and safely. And it doesn't feel free and safe out there having these, I guess, very progressive or radical thoughts or views, which I don't think are at all. I just
yeah,
think it's really about what you said. We're all
yeah,
the same. We all need the same. We all prosper when we're all doing well.
yeah,
Doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, what your religion is, whatever. It's just we're
yeah.
so divided right now.
And I look at my race right now with my Democratic opponent and then the two possible Republican opponents. When I saw the full length interviews that I did, Michael Markey did, he's a Republican. Hillary kind of did like a 9 minute long one. And Michael, I've told people, I go, hey, I'm gonna get those up on my website and I want you to look for yourself because everyone else just does not talk about actual policies or stats or factual things or anything. It's just you're Republican, you're stupid, I'm Democrat, I'm smart. And it's like that's not moving anyone forward.
Mhm.
That's infighting at the and it's frustrating and it's scary that all of my opponents have so much money that they can just continue to buy TV space, TV advertising space and mailers and everything, and just speak in general power terms and not actually address certain issues. Like I
Mhm.
talk about with big pharma, like I talk about with like Hillary's on the Small Business Administration Act, and there's a law in 1953 that 23% of our federal spending had to be spent on small businesses, and they divvy it up as far as um, minority owned, veteran owned. I think
Mhm.
veteran owned was about 5%. And Hillary has a little social media clip right now about how like veteran owned businesses are needing to grow and stuff. And I go, or they need the support from the small business. I go, lady, you are on the board. Like you can propose this stuff. Like you can say, hey, let's up it to instead of 23%, let's up it all the way to 50%.
Mhm.
Because when we talk about unions and everything, I go, most small businesses, yeah, you can unionize, but also like you probably know the owner if you're in a small business. So you can talk to the person as well. And I support people's right to unionize and everything. But I look at small businesses as the easiest way to the direct conversation with the owner as opposed to these big corporations. And I go, that'd be the easiest thing that you guys could do is up that to 50% or so and make sure federal spending is going back into these small businesses and stimulating that. It'd stimulate the middle class to me because that's where most of those small businesses are located at, what
Mhm.
level they're at.
Absolutely.
But she doesn't want to talk about it. She just wants to focus on Republicans are trying to take away your reproductive rights. That's it. That's the only thing that's going on.
Yeah,
And
sure,
yeah,
sure.
so
Okay,
that's
yeah.
so yeah, so
Well, it is time. I think we got you
yep,
gotta go. You got someplace
I
to be.
do. Yep.
Um, I do wanna just kinda do a little plug. We're gonna be having a watch party for you on the
Yep.
6th over at
Yep.
Puck Cider. That'll be from 7 to 10 that
Yep.
Tuesday. And I know that you and I will be in contact before then, but still, I'm so excited. I'm so proud of
Oh,
you.
thank you.
And I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm
Thank
got
you.
my fingers crossed and I go to the pools. I like to get my sticker. So I can't wait to bubble you
Yeah.
in on the
Yeah.
6th.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I'm so interested to see how everything's gonna pan out because um I feel like I've really touched on every single voting group that I possibly could have. Whether it's progressive people and saying I do support I feel like I address progressive causes. I don't think they're that progressive. I feel like they're pretty bare minimum, if anything.
I agree.
Um,
I agree.
yeah,
You and I
but
see eye to eye on that for sure.
I even look at like our voter base with the vote blue, no matter who people, and with Hillary, honestly, stabbing them in the back was saying that Joe Biden should step down. Again, giving no sense of direction or anything. I mean, I could go into so many examples with that stuff as a small business owner. Like, you have to have a sense of direction, and she doesn't have that.
No,
Um,
she doesn't. She doesn't.
and yeah, as a business owner as well, I think I've also hit on independent people with being a business owner and some of those statistics. And I think with independent people as well, I kind of hit on some of those things with FISA, which is the government surveillance program. I've said I wanted to repeal that. I can't do it alone, but I would be a vote to repeal that. I wouldn't allow for our Fourth Amendment rights to be violated with that act. Hillary voted yes for that. So those are things that I feel like I've touched on every single group, and we'll see how the cards play out on August 6th here. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. And one last thing, I almost forgot. I know it's
Mhm.
kind of late to the game, but the Michigan Social Workers for Palestine, I'm a coordinator for
Yeah.
them. And our members took a vote, and we have decided to endorse you as well. So there will
Hey,
be a post coming with that
sweet.
endorsement soon. I don't know when,
Sweet.
but soon.
All good.
So
Sweet.
awesome. Well, Salim, enjoy
Thank
your
you.
evening. And yes, I know we'll
Likewise.
be in touch. And I feel like this might be our last one, maybe if we decide to
I
get
think,
back on. But
yeah.
I've really enjoyed doing these Q&As with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, you're the biggest one that I owe the thank you to because I appreciate you taking time out of your day to volunteer and do this with me and have these, I mean, heart wrenching comments or conversations and everything because this stuff isn't easy. It's triggering, it's intense, it's frustrating, all of those types of emotions. So, honestly,
Yeah,
biggest thank you to you for doing this with me and helping promote me, connect me with your communities, all of that stuff. So, wouldn't be
absolutely.
possible without people like you and especially like you for leading so many of these causes. So
Thank
thank you.
you, Salim. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right. Take care, and I
Thank you.
will see you later.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Bye.